On March the 9th, 2024, we have some intense but powerful energy in our sky. At the very best, this March the 9th, which is a weekend, you may have an amazing breakthrough. But energies of rebellion, authenticity, independence, will, drive, and passion are heightened at the risk as well of reckless action and rash choices. So I'm going to guide you through what this square between Mars and Uranus may bring up for you based on your sun, moon, and rising sign. Now, the sun sign is your career and purpose and father figures, moon, body, home, nest, safety, and mother figures. But trust me, your rising sign is most accurate. So listen for that first and foremost, but certainly listen for all three. Now, this energy of Mars square Uranus is not an isolated incident. And if there's one thing I can tell you, it's that you need to look at the synodic cycle, the big picture, because this is the final act in a story that began in August of 2022. This is the third act and the closing act. And we finalize that story and close the curtain for good on this 2-year Mars-Uranus cycle in July of 24. So in other words, to repeat myself, what started in August of 2022 is ending in July of 2024. I want you to learn to see the sky as not one-off episodes of random planets screwing your life up, but rather a bigger picture story of an intelligent design in which the sky is giving you narratives in stage 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Well, that is what we're going to talk about today. So you can get the dates, look back, see what happened, and try to project what might happen. I'm giving you the big story of astrology, not just the little weather reports of it's like a weather reporter going, oh my God, it's raining today. But the big picture is there is a hurricane off the shore. You need the big picture story to understand the small microclimates of reality. Hi, you're new to my channel. Welcome. My name is Lori Lothian. I am using the Western Tropical Zodiac and the whole sign house system. And I also love the fixed stars and minor asteroids, Sabian symbols, and more. If you like this kind of content, please look at my little subscribe like button, the little button to subscribe. It helps the channel flourish. When it flourishes, I flourish. And also, if you want to learn astrology to time your best life, be your own astrologer, and understand these, I call deep code astrology cycles of the sky, maybe consider taking my Sky Reader class to do this, be your own astrologer, time your best life, in a 6-week course with me. It is for advanced beginner to early intermediate students, although you could potentially come in as a complete beginner and catch up. I mean, I do introduce you to the basic house concepts, planets, etc. We have live meetings every week to teach the class, replays available, and evergreen access, Facebook group, as well as weekly Q&As. It's very high-touch content from me to help you learn to fish instead of me always giving you a fish, all right? So, well, let's get going. Did I say my name? I think I did. Lori Lothian. All right, welcome. Let me get going for the stories first of what this cycle's about. Then we're going to open the chart up and talk about what this means for you based on your sign. First of all, this cycle has the keywords. I decide to write keywords down. I never do this, guys, but I thought, you know what, this is a big deal. I want to start introducing you to synodic cycles. So I got a little cheat sheet that I just wrote down for myself, what I think of this energy. When we talk about the big outer planet Uranus, who has been moving since 2018 in the sign of Taurus. This happened, by the way, in the 1935 to 42 or 3 time frame, back in the World War I, back in the Dust Bowl, all of that stuff, right? This is back again. And of course, the aftermath, the Great Depression. This is the energy it happened when Uranus was moving as a great awakener, great disruptor, electric change, sudden unexpected developments through the sign of Taurus, which is currencies, markets, monies, economies, land, agriculture, Dust Bowl, right? Now, it's an interesting narrative. We're going to get back to that. I might touch on it very briefly because it was in 1940 during a Mars square Uranus Jupiter story that the United States got into World War II after the Pearl Harbor bombing. So I want you to be aware of that because we have a Jupiter Uranus conjunction coming up on April 21st that last happened in 1941. That was exactly when the United States decided to get into World War II. That's my concern, the big picture story. This is called mundane astrology. I'm just talking about how the sky mirrors world events, but I'm also going to talk about your personal life as well. But if I just do world events and I don't do anything I mean, your personal life, but nothing about world events. That's not the kind of astrology I would like to practice. So Uranus keywords are shocks, freedom, autonomy, breakthrough, rebellion, and surprises. I could ask invention and iconoclasm. When I look at the words that Mars would like to have, thief, thievery, and stealing, that's a Mars thing. Did you know that? Conflict, attack, separation, force, will, personal will, anger, and passion. Decisions, right? So what happens when you mix this up? Okay, Uranus likes freedom. Mars is a fighter, freedom fighter, right? Decisions. Mars is reckless or rash at times, and Uranus is reckless and rash or rebellious, and Mars is, the one who makes decisions and separation. So the downside of this energy, it's a square. It means it's a hard aspect, and you're going to have to be careful on the 9th and 10th and 11th. You can start any time before that. Honestly, you could say this is a true between about the 6th of March and all the way to at least the 12th or 13th of March. Watch for reckless decisions, rash actions, impulsive energy playing through your chart. But I mean, the positive energy can be like a freedom fighter, can be like a noble rebel in some way. Now, I'm going to talk you and walk you gently through a few things to do with the cycle that we're coming off of and the cycle before that. And I really hope you can grab a pen, a piece of paper, a beer, a glass of wine, and settle in and really begin to absorb what I'm saying, because the more you look back over your life and what has happened, the more you can understand and anticipate what may happen. Rather than me tell you what will happen, look to the pieces of your own story and make the dots connect. In Renn Butler's amazing book, The Archetypal Universe, which I'm always sharing on my channel, friend and teacher of mine, I would say that he does say that this is about sudden breakthroughs, thrills, excitement, freedom, and independence. Okay, those are Mars-Uranus words, but it has a shadow side. And that could be reckless courage, defiance, impulsive actions, flashes of anger. Now, because he writes so many cool things in his amazing book, let me just read a bit of the content for you. So he says, boiling volatility, sudden confrontations, impulsive rash actions, hot-headed rebellion. If you can't keep your head when all about are losing theirs, it's just possible you haven't grasped the situation. And that's Jean Kerr, who had a Uranus-Mars energy in her chart, or his chart. The urge to shed blood. The urge to shed blood for various ideals. I'm not making that up. It's here. I don't think any of us are going to shed blood in our household on the weekend or into next week, but it could be about world events. Sudden energy eruptions, rebellion against the inner tyrant. All right. Yelling, ripping, cutting, tearing. Yelling, ripping, cutting, tearing. Electric madness. Liberation through aggression. Angry birth. Okay. Now, back in 2022, we had a conjunction of Mars and Uranus. And we also had one before that. And I'm going to give you the whole lowdown, because I think that the best I can offer you today, before we talk about this weekend as it closes out a chapter that began in August of 22, is to give you the broad brushstrokes to begin with. I hope that's okay with you. So if you want to go back to the idea that Uranus is moving through Taurus since 2018 and leaves in 2025, there are only 3 times in that time frame that Mars and Uranus will come together in a conjunction in Taurus. So this Uranus-Mars conjunction occurred in these periods of time. There was a Uranus-Mars conjunction January of 2021. I believe it was on Inauguration Day for the inauguration of Joe Biden. But I want you to go back to the idea. Just hold the idea in your mind. January of 2021, August of 2022, and then here we come July of 2024, Uranus-Mars conjunct, because when we get to July of 26, that conjunction is happening in early Gemini. We're leaving, Uranus has left the Taurus story behind. Now, when you go back to January of 21, that was the inauguration frame for Joe Biden, you might remember Stop the Steal and Insurrection Day. Mars was moving through Taurus, a place of instability. He bumped into Uranus, and the United States had what they considered, well, the Democrats did, an insurrection, whereas the Republicans thought it was civil protest. Who cares? I'm Canadian. The point is, to use the word insurrection, you're talking Mars, Uranus right away. That word is that. You could say civil protest and rebellion. You can say freedom fighter. By the way, we'll expect a lot of rebellious energy anytime we see Mars and Uranus together that looks like civil protest, that looks like freedom fighters, that looks like, yeah, insurrection, even coups, now military coups. And so January 21, we had the insurrection. We were also, you might remember, in the pandemic, and the vaccines were being rolled out. Just the beginning for doctors and stuff like that. And the reason I want to bring up the pandemic is because Mars rules plagues and war. In the ancient tradition of the Babylonians, the emissary of Nergal, he was in charge of illness, disease, and plagues that befall humanity. And he's also in charge of things to do with conflict and war. So we definitely saw that unfold then, the Insurrection Day, the pandemic vaccine rollout. Then on July of 2021, it was July the 4th, you can't make this up, Mars squared Uranus, right, from Leo. And that was the beginning of the Delta variant. And then all of the lockdowns in the pandemic that followed, lots of people not being able to leave their homes, lots of restrictions on where you could go shopping, where you could go, where you could travel to, who could travel. The rules, the lockdowns, the mandates became very evident, starting with the Delta variant in July of 21. In Canada, our Prime Minister enacted very severe legislation that didn't allow for any unvaccinated person to travel anywhere in Canada on a train or plane to go abroad, because we couldn't get out of our country, because how else are you going to do unless you're going to swim out there, on the edges of the water. Our only land border is with the US. So we were pretty well in a big lockdown. It happened everywhere, Australia, New Zealand, a lot of places in the world were particularly strict. I think Italy was one of them. But we saw the energy of Mars, right? Mars, the god of conflict, aggression, and war, and Uranus also look like protests, a rebellion against the mandates, particularly follow this narrative as we move to Mars opposite Uranus. That's now, so don't forget, Mars conjunct Uranus, January 21, Insurrection Day, vaccine mandates roll out, Biden's inaugurated. Then we go to July of 21, Delta variant, lockdowns, mandates. And that's Mars and Leo. And then we go until November 17th of 2022. Mars is opposite Uranus. This is Act 2 or 3, depending on how you're counting it. It's the oppositional energy from Scorpio. We saw a huge amount of anti-vaccine protests. This is where anti-mandates, anti-vaccination, anti became really big. You might remember the truckers' convoy in Canada that spread around the world. That was quite controversial. That happened between November 17th, 2022 and March 22nd, 2022. Indeed, it was happening in the winter, in Capricorn season, when Mars was exalted in Capricorn in December, January. And so that truckers' protest, third week of January to third week of February, was a part of what was put into motion, what was initiated by Mars opposite Uranus on November 17th, 2022 from Scorpio, right? That's where Mars is traveling. You don't have to look for the day of something. And that's what I really want you to hear today, like this moment. Because even though I'm talking about this weekend and March 9th, and don't fire, don't get fired at your job, don't rebel against your boss, don't, walk out on your marriage, don't make rash, reckless decisions, don't fire your child, don't divorce your mother. Okay, all of that. Yes, be cautious. But it's often with Uranus, it's not about the moment. This is a big transpersonal giant that moves super slowly through the heavens, 87 odd years, right, to get around the zodiac. It's not going to show you everything. It's not going to show you everything on the 9th and 10th of this month, right? You have to say what follows between the 9th and 10th of March, or just before that, through to July of this year, when he closes the curtain on this narrative and starts a new 2-year cycle with Uranus, all right? So finally, back in March 22nd, 2022, right? March 22nd, 2022, Mars squared Uranus from Aquarius, ending that cycle, bringing it to a close. What was happening in March 22? What was that ringing ding? I'm sorry. What was happening between March 22 of 2022 and August 1st of 2022? 22, right? The last closing chapter of that cycle. And so I want to talk to you about the synodic cycle that began, the first one, in 2021 in the month of January. And then we're going to move through the other cycles so you can, figure it out. So maybe grab a pen and paper and take some notes. I might have introduced this a glass of wine. I had to cut out a segment because my brain went on hiatus and I used a wrong date for you guys. So let's start from scratch. Mars and Uranus came together on Insurrection Day, January 21. It's also not the day of, it was actually the inauguration day for Joe Biden. But we saw rebellion, we saw protests, we saw civil disobedience, we saw the energy of a Mars-Uranus conjunction on January 2021. But that also led to reminding you that as Mars is the god of plagues and pandemics, we were also in the middle of a pandemic. We saw the vaccine rollout program starting. And then July the 4th, 2021, Mars in Leo squared Uranus and Taurus, the Delta variant. The Delta variant was announced, lockdown measures, extreme panic, and new mandates and rules around people being vaccinated and mandated vaccinations. And then we moved into November 17th of 2021. This is Mars opposite Uranus from Scorpio. And we saw the anti-vaccine mandate protests begin to emerge in the months that followed, including the truckers' convoy, January and February of 2022. So we begin to see people getting agitated and rebellious, Mars opposite Uranus, a lot of explosive energy. And finally, Mars squaring Uranus in March of 2022. In March of 2022, Mars squares Uranus and finishes this story that closes down in August of 22. March of 22 was the beginning of Omicron, and that was the beginning of the end of the pandemic. I mean, I do believe Omicron was discovered, right? Or was announced sometime shortly after the Mars, the god of plagues, opposite Uranus in November of 21, as well as a convoy and the protests. Omicron was announced and it turned out to be mild and people weren't getting sick and everything was much better and no one had pneumonia. And then, by the way, as we move towards Mars square Uranus, March of 2022, and through to August, we just saw people just tossing their mask and getting rid of their protocols and no one thinking, in March of 22 to August of 22, people were no longer living their lives under a panic umbrella of a pandemic thing, right? People are shifting gears. People are getting on planes without masks. The rules were dropping. Mandates were ending for people. Even here in Canada, awful but true. In the November of 2021, our country, our leader put a mandate in place that if you were unvaccinated, you couldn't get on a plane or a train, you couldn't go anywhere in or out of your country. It created great hardship. Lots of people were put under vaccine mandates for ways that impeded their health, their jobs, and it was really awful. But by the time we got to March of 23, there was a turnaround story. And by the time we got to June, our country dropped all of those federal travel ban, vaccine protocols and punitive actions. And now they're being lawsuit about it. and our one of our courts has ruled the mandates were unconstitutional. So bottom line is that we're seeing this. That was one story. A lot of that story had to do with Mars and truckers, Mars and convoys, Mars and protests, vaccines and war. But don't forget, the inauguration of Biden happened on the first Uranus conjunction to Mars in January of 21. And therefore, Biden's presidency is hooked into the cycle of this Mars-Uranus conjunction. And therefore, we will talk about the politics of this as well. Now, that's called mundane astrology. In 2022, go back, rewind your brain, go to the last week of July, the first week of August. It was around August 1st and 2nd. The three planets came together at once. It was Mars and Uranus in the regular synodic cycle. This is the second one in this one, not seen since the 30s and 40s. And they came together, but it happened to be with the North Node, Rahu. Now, the North Node keywords I picked up are hunger, greed, grasping, striving, obsession, losing one's head. It's intensifying the Uranus-Mars conjunction to a new level. Rahu can be where we lose our way. Did everybody watch The Matrix? Remember the movie? And you remember how Cypher wanted to come back into the Matrix for steak and wine and cigar? He'd rather have the pleasures of the unreal world than the displeasures of the real world. Often Rahu is the energy or the North Node that compels us to grasp for something, to really want to, obsessively like without any kind of like a chicken with your head off, get something you want, you think you want, because it can bring you worldly success as well. So this is an energy that was really embedded within the Uranus and the Mars conjunction. It was fused with it in August 1st of 22. And people go, oh, nothing happened then. I did something called the Big Boom webinar, and I'll put a free link below to the replay video because I talk about the synodic cycle a bit. But people are all like, oh my God, nothing happened to me. Go watch the replay for your sign. I'll put it for free in the description box because, of course, it's a longer cycle of 2 years in which things will unfold from the inauguration date of August 1st, 2022. We haven't seen those three, North Node, Uranus, in Taurus coming together with Mars since time of Alexander the Great. So it was exceptionally rare. And look at the times we're living in, guys. Look at the times we're living in. Shall we count the ways? Now, in this energy that I like to tell you about, I want you to track your life. Get your pen, get your paper, and we will do your sign, but get a pen, get a paper, and let's go through the dates together. They came together with the North Node, August the 1st, 2022, Mars, Uranus, in the Taurus part of your chart, one of 12 pi slice houses in your 12 pi slice house whole sign sky. Please use whole sign houses. Go download my free tutorial on how to cast your chart and why you should cast your chart in whole sign houses. It's in my description box below. In YouTube land, we have to pretend we're using whole sign houses, which is the ancient tool anyway, because we have to give you bell curve general astrology predictions separate from your very skewed Placidus houses, which may or may not be useful in life if you ask me. So please listen for your whole sign houses. I mean, just listen as if we're all whole sign house junkies. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Every single YouTube astrologer has to act as if we're delineating in whole sign houses in order to make a general prediction for a sign. Now, Mars in Leo last summer squared Uranus on June the 26th, 2023. I think he might have done it twice, actually. But in general, June, July of 23. What was going on in June, July of 23? No, I think he did it once. He was moving direct. What was going on June of 26, 2023 in your life that came off of the August shock and awe disruption? So I have to use me as an example because I know myself the best. I don't know you best, right? So I'm an Aquarius rising. This is happening in Taurus, which is my 4th house. When Mars and Uranus came together, by the way, in January of 2021, I was living in Montreal, and there was a major disruption, and I had to move from Montreal to Vancouver in the 2 years, or in this case, the year and a half that followed, right? So between January 21 and August of 22, the next reset button of Mars and Uranus, I had a jolting, surprising, unexpected, and shocking reason, that I'm not going to go into, to leave Montreal and move back to Vancouver, Canada. It was a big cross the country move, all right? Then, because it's 4th house, home, land, property, real estate, domicile, domestic, private life. Okay, then we move forward. Now we're back in August 1st of 2022, and this conjunction happened, and I was happily residing in a rental property in Vancouver, Canada, rented to me by a friend of mine. She didn't live in it, so I had been inhabiting that property, and I had a guarantee from her that say, you've got this place until, the spring of next year, spring of 23. You can't make this up. Unexpected, erratic developments, Uranus, home, domicile, Mars, rash, reckless, intense. Don't forget, baked in with the desperation of the headless one, Rahu. My girlfriend said she needed her place back out of the blue with no warning. She was happy. She had a valid need, but I had to find a new place to live. And that happened when? It happened when? Okay, so the synodic cycle that we're talking about here is June of 23 to November 12th of 23. That was between the square and the opposition. So in June of 26, I was happily nested in a rental property. And by November 12th, I had moved out. And I'd gotten COVID. Don't forget, Mars is always about COVID or pandemics and plagues. And it was the first time I'd had COVID without any unsafe and effective medical treatments. I did indeed just sail through 3 days of a bad headache and a fever in bed, but I will admit that it took me a couple weeks to feel normal. But nonetheless, not only did Mars deliver the plague into my domestic life, because he was therefore activating the energy from a square from Leo, June 26th. Leo is any significant other in legal contract. And there went my lease with this particular friend. So the lease was kiboshed, right? The whole thing was over. I had to find a place to live. It was very disruptive. Think back for your sign. You're looking for the disruption really connected to the Taurus part of your chart where Uranus sits. Mars is just the shove and the push to create the disruption. Right? The disruption is happening in your Taurus place of your 12 pie slice house. If you're a Scorpio rising, it's disruption in your significant love and marriage type relationships, for example. See what I mean? All right. And then we move forward and we talk about the next disruption. And the next disruption is on November the 12th. Mars was opposite in 2023, opposite Uranus. And on November 12th of 23, he opened up a next chapter, a next act that lasts until this March 10th that we're coming into, 9th, 10th, depends on your time zone. So what is going on in your life in that Taurus Uranus story in your natal sky between November the 12th of 2023? That's the opposition from Mars, from the Scorpio part of the sky, coming into the square from Aquarius. Mars is moving now through Aquarius. He will square Uranus, and this is going to be yet another stepping stone in this story. I hope I don't have another disruption of where I live. I just talked to my landlady. All seems fine. But November the 12th through to March the 10th, that narrative has finished up. That is over. That has looked like positive breakthroughs and surprises in which I managed to rent an amazing home in Vancouver under the most serendipitous breakthrough and lucky way possible. You cannot make this shit up. So don't be afraid of Mars Uranus. It's not always bad and scary. It's actually sometimes just like exhilarating, winning a race in a Olympic event and you being the underdog and surprising everybody. It can be a breakthrough. It can be your next best high in a golf game or something, right? It's something outside the box, outside the line, something that shocks you, surprises you, and it can be exhilarating as well. So I'm in this exhilarating new place that I'm living, and it's amazing. And then March the 10th, 9th, 10th, coming up this weekend through to July, I think it's the 15th of 24, we're in the closing chapter of the same story. I'll keep you posted about what happens regarding homeland, property, and real estate, domestic and private life for me in that regard. Now, I bet you some of you are astrologers or astrology learners, and you know that the signs in which this is happening as Mars travels around the zodiac are called fixed signs. And that's because in order to make these angles of squares and oppositions to Uranus and Taurus, he must move through the fixed signs of Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. That means that you fixed signs, sun, moon, and rising, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, are getting the most jolts from this thing. You're like, it's more intense for you. Okay, it's more intense for us. I have my ascendant in Aquarius, so I'm really feeling it, right? It's like, whoa. All right, so now you understand the synodic cycle. You're trying to make sense of your life because honestly, this July's reset, I think it's the 15th of July, does not close its doors until 2026. And when it does that in 2026, it is a conjunction in Gemini. So the end of the story happens in another sign and begins a new cycle. So we're going to finish that in 26 in the sign of Gemini, and that is the end of the narrative. I'm going to see if I have the exact date written down, but I don't. But just know it comes to a close in 26. So the new cycle this summer, we're going to do a big webinar. I'll go through all the points for you, so stay tuned for that. Now, we're going to go to your sign. I'm going to take us over to the sky, and we are going to go through it. If you're new to my channel, please like and subscribe. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'd love to have you here. And I also have a Patreon community. Some of you already know that. They're getting this recorded on March the 4th for early access, ad-free content. Plus, they get access to 1 to 3 Zoom meetings with me a month, depending on their tier, as well as I'm giving away an ethical bribe in which you can get 2 free classes, Chiron, the Key to Purpose, and also my other one, which is Chiron, the Key to Purpose, And Synastry, Are You My Person Relationship Astrology classes that I've already taught. The replays valued at $66 are free for you. If you want to try me out and after a $5 investment in 1 month of my Patreon, you don't like the community, you don't like what I'm doing over there, you can leave, right? You can leave and keep the gifts. All right. So I've finally got the software up, and we're going to start going through each sign. I want you to, again, please remember it's a broader cycle. Don't think everything happens on Saturday and Sunday. Do not do that. It's not the way it really works. So let's start, as always, with Aries, because Aries, you are first and foremost. I have an Aries sun and moon. Let's just call a spade here, and Mercury. So here we have it. So listen for your sun for career, guys. Moon for body and home, and career and purpose sun, but your rising sign all about you. So what we can see here, guys, is that as we approach this, 9th, 10th weekend, we see March 8th is where I've got it queued for. Mars is at 18 degrees and he's squaring Uranus at 19 degrees. And this is going to be a kind of intense energy of, perhaps, as I said earlier, sort of a rebellious, freedom-loving, reckless quality. But I also want to have you look closely at the people who Mars might represent here, who are really very aggressive right now for you. And that can be friends who are in your social groups, or that can be an elder sibling, or that could be some connection to somebody in the work and colleague space sometimes even. So this Mars person with the scissors and the sword and the shouting match may not even be you. All right. And don't forget, we talked about this before. This is a larger synodic cycle that started August of 22, and you had some turning points in June of 23, November of 23, and March. Here we are, March of 2024. And this whole narrative closes in July of 24. So I'm going to just tell people to go back and listen to the synodic cycle rather than repeat it for each sign. But here's the deal. Whatever this is, it's a final closing act, right, on stories that involve others. Because in the 11th house, unless it's your great gains from your career that's pushing you in terms of earnings and career success, then it's people. What people are pushing you, and maybe being more aggressive than you normally would expect from them, as this is occurring in that 11th house, squaring your second house. That's your earnings and voice and vocation and calling. It's the money and resources and possessions that you have and make. And so with that energy, there's definitely something going on that is alerting you in a kind of intense way regarding your finances. And don't get into a conflict here on an acute level, an approximate level with anybody in a social setting on the weekend, like a Friday through Sunday in particular, where you're having an argument about money or your self-worth and self-esteem as it applies to money with some person in a social engagement setting. That's the worst that could happen here, is someone's blowing off steam. If someone aggresses on you in a rash way, speaks harshly in a rash way, does some kind of reckless word speak or whatever, just let them speak and let it go, because this is really not about them. It's about you. What are they mirroring at you that is putting you in touch with a synodic cycle that's been disrupting your earnings and making it erratic ever since 2018, right? I can relate. And there may be some pushback or shove back from an elder sibling, friend as ally, benefactor, or social setting group where something is going to like a little bit rattle you, just a little bit rattle you in this window of time. Technically, it's not the first time you've had this energy, right? When we go through the 2021 synodic cycle, this would have been March of 23 to August of 20, March of 20. I am so pissed off at myself. March of 2022 to August of 2022, because Mars squared Uranus from Aquarius in that window of time. Go back and see how things would have played out regarding your earnings and instability in your earnings and tension and erraticism with people in your life from March of 22 to August of 22, when this new reset started, another cycle. There may be things you can pull back from your memory of what was happening in that window that can help you see the bigger picture of how this might be playing out this time. Okay? Because Jupiter's trying to make you rich. Now, he's only been here for a short time, right? He got here last May. So all the other synodic cycles with Mars squaring Uranus did not involve Jupiter being in the story, which gives us a bit more of a positive spin for all of us, right? Less nail biting and angsty and more positive than anything else. So positive, also jolts of electrical excitement and exhilaration, maybe getting some greater gain in your career as well than you expected to get, or some favor from a friend in a high place or an elder sibling to do with money. We do have the goddess of money up there with Mars jolting through your system sometime between, let's say, oh, I don't know, March the 7th and the 13th. Now, what you have in the sky for us Tauruses, or you Tauruses, my daughter's one of you, don't forget with Jupiter, with Uranus, everything about this narrative does not have to be so difficult as it has been in the past. But the last time you felt Mars, don't forget, and we started a cycle, August of 22, it closes July of 24. It's a big cycle. Go back and listen to the beginning of the video to understand the details of it, the different acts or turning points there. But this is about your career, right? Career and reputation space up at the top of the sky. Actions you take in the visible world that people see you doing. If you're a student, your visible career is I'm a student. If you're retired, I don't know what you're doing, golf, but that's your visible thing. So up there, that's what Mars is up to. He's squaring from your 10th house, the final act of a story that started in August of 22, and he's squaring Uranus, but Jupiter's co-present. So it has a lucky edge to it, a lucky career opportunity, a lucky career break between this particular cycle of March 10th, 9th, 10th of 2024 to the summer, July of 2024. Go back to see what it felt like, but you didn't have lucky Jupiter helping you out, right? He wasn't there in March of 2022 to August of 2022. Now, in this idea of your career and reputation and you being a rebel and a freedom seeker and wanting what you want and breaking the rules and doing your authentic independence and sovereignty in your career story, this is not the same difficulty that you might have experienced, in March of 22 to August 1st of 22. This has Jupiter's blessings. It might be like an echo of the past, but without the hardship. So let me know how that goes, what happens for a lot of you Taurians here. It looks to me like a radical, exhilarating change in your job, change in your career, change of direction, basically. That's what Mars is famous for, changing one's direction and making choices and decisions to go in a new way, a new direction. Gemini, sun, moon, and rising sign. The action of this synodic reset is happening in Taurus, of course. As I mentioned earlier, it's always going to be about foreign land, revenue from foreign people, foreign shores, borderless income, psychological, spiritual awareness, spiritual liberation and awakening. This has been true since we got the Uranus story here since 2018. I have a Gemini progressed sun. I've now started to make a lot of money online since 2018 because I don't have to have borderless income. I mean, my clients are around the world. My business is global. You could also be like, where are your addictions and self-undoing? Uranus is erratic. You might be, super dry, and then you're going back into an addiction or a self-undoing or self-sabotage pattern. This is Jupiter here, though, this time, and he's blessing you, right? He's saying, hey, this synodic cycle that began for you back in August 1st of 2022 is in its final chapter with a square from Mars in your 9th house of foreign countries, foreign shores, and foreign lands, as well as Dharma, the meaning of your life, what you wish to apply yourself toward that has, deep sense of authenticity, true north, and also things to do with foreigners, foreign shores, and foreign places. Things to do with book publishing, things to do with course and academics. So this kind of vibe is pushing you right now, pushing you from a place that's very much about a deeper spiritual and humanitarian vibe. And it's pushing you to make some changes in that 12th house. Now, honestly, this is subtle because the 12th house is already subtle. It can look like very deep spiritual breakthroughs. The house of God is where Mars is like acting like a spiritual warrior here. And you could also look at it as opportunities for travel that are quite important coming up. And Jupiter means gurus, ashrams. And this is Mars in the house of pilgrimages. I'm doing the El Camino from a sudden opportunity that emerged a couple of days ago. This is a part of this Mars shock and awe exhilaration to do an El Camino trip on the Portugal route. And if you're interested in coming with me, but I might have gathered together a bit of a mini tribe by the time you see this video. Just email me and I'll put you in touch with that. Lori@lunaticastrology.com. I'm going to gather 6 friends or clients to join me in a small maximum 18 group with a shaman friend of mine. Anyway, so there's that. So this is a pilgrimage for me. This is what my progressed sun is doing. It's a pilgrimage that's going to put me on touch with my purpose. Progressed sun, Gemini. What are you doing here, Geminis? What is it really for? And go back to March of 22 to August of 22, when Mars was also in this part of your chart squaring Jupiter. And what was the narrative then? But squaring Uranus. But with this blessing here of Jupiter, it's not the same. It's the good version. The other one was the dark version of it, the harder version, the shadow version. So connect those dots in your life. I guess I could say for me, with my progressed sun in Gemini, March of 22 to August of 22, that was mostly, if I remember correctly, a feeling of a disruption or uncertainty and dissatisfaction with my earnings and money I was making on my channel. And other factors. It was very disruptive for me. I was traveling. I had to move out of my house. I was unstable. All right. Cancer, sun, moon, and rising. So remember the big picture, please. This synodic cycle of Mars Uranus is taking its final bow in a last act of something that started in 2022 in the month of August. And it was intense. Please listen to the beginning because Rahu was there. And the flavor of this cycle is intense. This is the closing chapter of that synodic cycle in Taurus. Now, everything about this for you as a Cancer is about your great gains from your career, your elder sibling, things to do with your dreams and goals for your life, maybe your wishes for your life, as well as friends who benefit you. And this house got activated by the erratic energies of Uranus in 2018. And there's been some maybe big ups and downs in your career gains, some erratic developments and shocking, surprising things with a sibling, elder, things to do with friends as benefactors or allies. So that's been erratic for you for sure. At the same time, you might have moved your business onto the internet because that's the internet god Uranus in the house of, visibility. But that aside, to think about what you were doing in August of 22, generally speaking, in this area of your sky, it now has a last quarter square from Mars in your chunky money house with a benefic Jupiter midwiving this last chapter. So I could say something like between March the 9th and July the 15th, the last chapter looks like some increase in your finances. And that increase can come through your work, through your money from your career, through things to do with inheritances, shared resources with a spouse, money from an elder sibling or connected to an elder sibling, money from tax rebates, but I don't know. There's more money coming in surprising and sudden ways that you will enjoy. It's unlike the March of 22 to August of 22 timeframe. That version of it didn't have Jupiter's beneficence, and that might have been much more destabilizing, erratic, and uncomfortable for you in the themes of the money axes of 11 and 8. Jupiter's making you lucky for great career gains through to the end of May. And with this turning point here, the Mars square, look for things to be revealed that were hidden as well. Okay, what could you not see? Mars can definitely dispense secrets sometimes here with Pluto. What things didn't you know about legacy wealth, family of origin, or your spouse's money that could surprise you but positively influence your greater wealth story as well in this last quarter square between March the 9th and July of 2024. Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign, the energy says something along the lines of, as a fixed sign, you're getting the brunt of it, just like the Tauruses and Scorpios. It says something like, we have got a Jupiter-Uranus connection up there in your 10th house. Don't forget Uranus in the 10th house of career for you, Leos, has radically changed, exhilarating, freedom-loving career changes since 2018-19. I know a Leo got into the movie industry since then. She drives people around in cars. She's got independence and freedom. She's quite young. Her name is Livy, if you're listening, and she loves that for now. It's been an erratic, exciting change of her career direction from working in retail stores. And so that's an example of what Uranus does in the 10th house for Leos, right? Especially Leo rising, but Leo sun as well, and moon, especially sun, it's your career. And this energy of the erratic ups and downs and the, back and forth, and who knows what's happening next, and unexpected twists and turns. It has been going on since 2018, but now we've got this Mars conjunction cycle, right? The 3 times it happens. We're in the second one. We're in the last act. So go back to August of 2022. This is when this reset button with Rahu, very electric currents, very intense energy, started in that careers and reputation house for you. Now we have the last quarter square. This is going to be Mars in the house of your marriage partner, significant long-term relationships, legal contracts, audience and marketplace, squaring Uranus. There could be big changes in your life, both in your career and reputation in the next few months until mid-July, coming from legal contracts. So getting hired somewhere, getting a new deal, getting a new term, things to do with your significant other. This is very electric, right? Very intense. Now, it can be with Jupiter here, and he's been here since last May and will be here to the end of this May, that this is exciting and positive, unlike maybe the disruption you had in career and significant relationship energy back in March of 22 to August of 22. This square of Uranus, of Mars from your Aquarius to Uranus may have something like a golden rainbow effect. You'll be very happy with some breakthrough in your career in the next few months, right? Between March the 9th and July, and also breakthroughs in your significant love relationships. And some of you might end a relationship but begin another one in the next few months between March 9th and July 15th. And possibly this is setting you up for an office relationship or meeting somebody in a career setting. That's not the person you're with. I mean, Mars, Pluto here, there could be a very catalytic and dramatic end to one existing relationship in the next March, April, May, June, 4 months. All right, Virgo, sun, moon, and rising. The sky is opening up a big energy here for you on the weekend, but it's bigger than that. It's a synodic cycle. That's why you got to go back and listen to the beginning of the video and understand the deeper layers of meaning. Please do that. But we can say simply that this is an energy of Mars, the god of change and will and new directions and decisions, who could act rash or impulsive in regards to work matters, quitting your job, getting fired, someone in the workplace getting fired. Is it bad for you? Maybe, maybe not. But radical job and work changes can happen. And that's affecting the 9th house. And the 9th house has to do with your academic settings or foreign land travel plans or things to do with third marriages. And this disruption from the 6th house can also involve disruption because of pets, disruption because of rental contracts and agreements, tenancy agreements or landlord agreements, disruptions because of a health matter, especially acute. In Mars is like an injury or a rash or something or a fever. And so these things are kind of pivoting you in a new direction. Now, is it all happening on the weekend? Of course not. This is March the 9th, 10th, and then you're going to push it forward to July 15th when this cycle comes to a close. You may have felt some very destabilizing and erratic energy, right? March of 22 to August of 22, in the themes I've just outlined, when you didn't have benefic Venus, greater benefic Jupiter watching over the show. It's like there's terrible fireworks that could burn something down, but Jupiter's saving the day. So I think at the end of the day, it could be a choice between a work commitment and a travel opportunity, a health matter and a travel opportunity, an academic matter and a work matter clashing, right, in the next 3 months. And something's got to give here. Something's got to give. Now I'm stopping for a chocolate break. I'll be right back and we'll continue with this story. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. Let's continue, shall we? I had a good chocolate break and a big, deep stretch because by the way, when you're doing a lot of sitting down for clients, a lot of recordings and stuff like that, it really sucks. It really just sucks for your body. I'm always like rubbing my tailbone and trying to adjust my piriformis and my my sacroiliac joint and stuff like that. Okay. Let's get back to you guys and not about me. Let's roll. This talk of this big synodic cycle in its last quarter is what we're all about. It's not just about the one-off Uranus conjunct or Uranus square Mars. It's about a big cycle, right? March the 9th, 10th, Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising. This is a last quarter square that started from the beginning of a synodic cycle of a conjunction between Mars and Uranus in Taurus on the 22nd, in August 1st of 2022. Now, remember that the Taurus part of your chart is your chunky money, inheritance money, tax rebates, situations to do with insurance, credit card debt, mortgages, money from banks, all of the stuff that you leverage other people's money, unearned income. This money over here in your 8th house is alive. It's alive and erratic and up and down like a yo-yo ever since Uranus got here back in 2018, 19, and will be here until 2025. That said, the synodic cycle here is active. And so this is the last quarter square from Mars in your house of romantic love and children. Some of you Libras may have some major changes going on here coming up between the time frame of March the 9th, 10th, all the way through to July 15th to do with children, romance, entrepreneurship, and money issues. Now, money you share with a spouse, money you share with a child, money you're working with, doing in your entrepreneurial or creative artistic endeavors or businesses. These things are very in the change mode for a Libra. The 5th house is Mars in a flow back to you, which isn't so bad, but you're dealing with that South Node, which is a little bit depleting for you at this time. But the Mars is flowing to Jupiter as well, and Jupiter can protect you. If you go back to March of 2022 to August of 2022, the same energy was alive in your sky, but this energy did not involve Jupiter saving the day, blessing you, giving you something lucky. You could win money because Venus, the goddess of money, and she's lucky, is in the speculation house, and this is stock. So for some Libras, a stock can pop if that's a positive surprise. Yeah, you. And you'll have to make a radical decision to sell it or not. You might win the lottery ticket, though. That's not a bad time for Libras to play. Just know your limit, play within it. And if you win a lottery ticket, then you'll be making rash, hopefully not reckless decisions about what to do with it. Now, because Jupiter is in a house of secrets, and this is a house of romantic love, there could be a secret revealed in a romantic love affair that kind of shocks everybody, but then also because of Jupiter helps you work out things like the good secret revealed to refresh the relationship without any toxic secrets in the way. That's another interpretation I would use here as well. But you know you best. Don't forget, this is coming to a close in July. And then you're going to reset one more 2-year reset button in that chunky money house. This is an inheritance transit. Jupiter's been here since last May, end of this May, can often bring inheritance money, bequeathments, that kind of thing. Big money luck in the stock market sometimes. Be careful, though. And so this is also a theme I want you to think of between March the 9th through to July. Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Big synodic cycle here going on that started in August of 2022. But I want you to also consider that starting in 2018, Uranus began to ingress through Taurus. And for a lot of Scorpios, this has been very destabilizing, erratic, and changeable energy in your primary love relationship. I know a Scorpio who, his partner went into an open marriage at that time, and then now they're back out of it. But that kind of erratic, creative, open marriage stuff, experimenting, getting together with new love relationships with people way outside the box of your normative, finding yourself in those kinds of engagements. A lot of Scorpios also may have moved some of their outreach to their clients and audience into Uranian fields, such as the internet, since 2018-19. Now, this disruption, erratic energy in your primary love relationship is something that is now still in play until 2025, now part of a Mars cycle. So Mars is initiating something here starting in August of 2022, closing up this chapter by this July. And this is the last quarter act or square. Mars is in the house of home, land, property, and real estate, domestic life and environment, people you're in your house with. Mars here can have you travel far from home. It can be a bit of an expat signature where you might want to move to another country even. But with this happening, and this expat signature has been active, right, since 2020. 21, as Mars was squaring Uranus in your seventh, some of you may have moved to another country. One of my Scorpio girlfriends just did that. She moved to Portugal in that window. So there is this kind of energy for some Scorpios to want to uproot themselves, or to move far, far away from their home that they were born in, whether it's your country or your state or your province, I'm not sure. But there's like something going on here March 9th and 10th where major rash or reckless or hopefully exciting and exhilarating actions and decisions might be made from in your home, maybe with someone you live with, particularly Venus there, someone you like or love. And it may reflect upon choices to do with real estate as well, buying and selling of property. And that energy is true right now, right through March the 9th through to July the 15th. This one is lucky, unlike the more turbulent energy of March of 2022 to August of 2022, when this happened as well, from Aquarius, Mars to Uranus and Taurus. And that didn't have Jupiter's blessings. So I think my son and his partner tried to sell their house in that window of time, his wife to be, and it didn't work out. They all fell apart. I'm pretty sure that's when it was. And this could be a reboot where it does work out, for example. Sell or buy a house or something like that, a property, real estate, etc. And this could be good things happening as a Scorpio for your significant other, where they're having some radical, exciting, positive things happen. And you have to make choices, decisions together in your home, about your home and where you live, or what to do in and from your home. And those are really active for you March 9th and 10th through to July 15th. But also be careful for fighting in the home with a significant person in your life. That's one darker side of what could happen here on the weekend. Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising sign. This is you moving through the part of the sky that represents, this is Mars moving through the part of the sky that represents Aquarius, your trips and travel house, and also siblings and local neighbors and neighborhood. It's interesting here because this is Mars in a last quarter square to Uranus in your sixth house of work. And a lot of this looks very worky for a lot of you guys. Work, neighborhood, neighbors, work routines, work habits, work environments. This is very active. Now, I want to remind you the big picture story. Uranus moved into your work and health house, guys, ever since 2018-19, and that's been very disruptive of work and health matters. Tenancies and rental agreements have been very chaotic for you as well. And this energy, playing out in this part of your sky is coming to a kind of a synodic cycle journey that started August of 2022, as I said in the beginning, and completes this July of 24. This is the last act. So Mars might want you to take a trip for work, to take a journey with a neighbor, to travel with a sibling, to go on a journey somewhere for your better health, mental, emotional, spiritual health. Sixth house matters, a house of sickness. And you might be going back and looking, if you want, to March of 2022, to August of 2022, the last quarter square of another cycle, the previous cycle that started in January 21, and how it played out then. But it was more difficult because you didn't have Jupiter's blessings, all right? Jupiter's blessing your health and work stories now, like last May through to the end of May this year. This also could be a sudden opportunity to acquire a pet at a local pet store. This could be a sudden shocking opportunity to go on an adventure, a travel, a trip with a female friend, a sibling, a neighbor, a neighborhood, a childhood friend. And that travel journey may connect to improving your health or align you in a better way with your work. Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising. In the sky, what we see here is a story where Uranus moved into your fifth house back in 2018-19. It made for a very upsetting, erratic, changeable relationships with children, with your passion and purpose and entrepreneurial and creative stuff, erratic and changeable stuff with romantic and sexual love stories. Maybe you went like outside the box here. I know a Capricorn and went into all kinds of weird tantric stuff during this transit for the first time in his life. So, this kind of thing is happening in your fifth house. Well, I shouldn't say weird. It's weird for me, but one other person's weird is another person's normal, right? So this is for you to remind you of the backdrop. Now, Uranus keeps getting in a tango with Mars, and this synodic tango with Mars started in 2022. It started in August, on August 1st, and this reset a button for you of some immense importance to do with romantic and sexual love, children, fun, play, joy, and pleasure, fertility, and even matters to do with what brings you joy and enjoyment in life. So think back, if it's about romance, you can pretty well say your romantic life has been, since 2018, erratic and unpredictable, right? But now we have Jupiter's blessing and something's different here. So this is a flow, like not flow, but this is a greater benefic, opening up more positive surprises here. Now, money luck belongs to the 5th house, and Mars is squaring from the house of possessions, money, and earnings. This is a money axis for you. It could look like something's going on March 9th this year to July 16th this year, the last quarter square. That's an erratic, unexpected, surprising financial development. And you might think of it as a speculation, money luck, or an entrepreneurial opportunity. You felt the same thing reverbing through your chart, March of 2022, right, to August of 2022. That was also in play back then. Destabilized romances, destabilized money, luck stories, destabilized entrepreneurial stories, things like that. But Jupiter's here, and Jupiter is a greater benefic this time, and he's watching over it, kind of midwifing something good. So it may be more exhilarating and surprising than disruptive and shocking. And your children are here, so they could have some unexpected positive developments. It also impacts your financial bottom line in a good way. Or your romantic love partner can also have a bottom line positive event in their lives, and that can impact you in a good way in your own financial stories. Again, we're looking at March 9th, 10th, all the way through to mid-July. Just be a little bit careful here. I mean, Mars can be sharp speech, and you may aim that as aim it at a child, aim it at a romantic partner, but with the aim on the weekend of doing something good with that. You know, maybe it's like hard, tough love talk with somebody. And that's about it. I mean, let's face it, Mars is bringing your attention at this time of year in his Aquarius transit for your greater good, to what you need to eliminate in your spending and what you need to do with your money and possessions. And often he likes to eliminate a possession. So it might be like time to sell a car, it's not time to sell something and liberate the money from that. That's another thing Mars does when he's here, especially with Venus, who loves her luxury items. You may sell a luxury item because it's a sensible thing to do. And that may be very positive on your financial bottom line and make you feel more lucky with money, for example. You know, and did you sell any of your possessions March 20th of 2022? Add, till August of 22, maybe not. Let's see what happens next. I'm an Aquarius, sun, moon, and rising, like you guys. I'm an Aquarius rising. You might be sun and moon. All three can be useful. We've had Uranus since 2018 destabilizing our nest, our home, our root. And all of us had a different vibe because of your early degree Aquarius or late degree Aquarius. It's coming and going for all of us. But I certainly have moved many times more than I want to since 2018-19. And this disruption of the home, the private life, the domestic life, the nest, the place you reside, the domicile, is still in play until 2025, and then begins to no longer be a destabilized place. I also started working on the internet with my YouTube channel in 2018, and internet is Uranus, so from home, right? So there's other things to consider here. So Jupiter's here at this time. So let's go back to the synodic cycle of August of 2022. I already told my story in the beginning. I'm not going to repeat it. August of 2022, closing out this July, is a long 2-year cycle to do with things that are changing in some fundamental way, in surprising and unexpected, erratic ways with your home life and what you're doing in and from the home. Now, with Mars here in a last quarter square applying from you are the one making the decisions. You're the one with the rash or reckless action or the exhilarating positive decisions and choices you may be making because you choose, you act, right? Because it's you being the Martian character. If you go back to see what that felt like last time in March of 2022, all the way through until August of 2022, what were the things that were happening there? What decisions were you making? What actions were you taking in that last quarter square in the last synodic cycle, right? Because it reset again in August of 22. And you might get some hints as to what could be happening here, like what could be similar here. I would say to you, because Mars is I didn't find that a particularly challenging period. I mean, spring of 22 to August of 22 I didn't know I was going to be moving again. So I was feeling pretty secure. I was making executive decisions, perhaps, regarding other matters to do with my property, home, and real estate. But I wasn't feeling destabilized. So just asking how you guys are doing this time around too. How were you feeling last time? Because when we have Mars in the house of us, we're holding the sword, we're holding the gun, so to speak. We got the decision making, action taking power in our own capability. However, we do have Pluto here for the first time, which is a whole other vibe. This is closing out in July, so we'll say between the 9th and 10th, right? And July of this month, mid-July, we're going to see the last gasp of what possible changes could happen here. I mean, where would we go? Where are we going to move? Are we going to relocate? What's going to happen here? What's the real narrative for? Are we going to choose a new home that's very bounteous and prosperous and big and exciting? Could be a rental as well, because Jupiter is the exaltation lord of the sixth house of rental properties. But it feels good to me. And I could dive into this 100 ways to Sunday for each sign, but we're just going with the simple delineation. Alrighty. We're now moving on to Pisces, sun, moon, and rising. So what happens here is that there is a cycle of Mars and Uranus that has been ongoing. Now, Uranus has been destabilizing a Piscean's third house of younger siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors in neighborhood, writing projects, online world, social media. My sister Cindy's a Pisces rising. Talk about destabilization. She does a psychic readings business, Raven's Eye Oracle, and she got shut down by PayPal for no valid reason. Didn't get her money back out of the account for a year, had to move over to Stripe. It was literally a time when PayPal was doing this to a lot of people a couple of years back. So you might have had a lot of destabilization in third house matters, right? A lot of you. And that can be like your neighborhood and where you live and which part of the neighborhood and where you're going and stuff like that as well, especially if you're floating IC and whole sign houses falls into the third house or into Taurus, third house. Now, for you, I want you to go back to August of 22, because that was when, August of 2022, that was when the reset cycle of Mars Uranus in your third house happened, indicating a change of neighborhood, indicating a change of neighbors, indicating a change of sibling relationships, a change in your online world, social media, writing projects, websites, a change in your daily life routines, and disruptive change, but nonetheless somewhat positive, because it still does flow to your ascendant, and a change in educational and travel opportunities as well, this disruptive perhaps. This synodic cycle that started in 2022, don't forget, this started in 2021 and a pandemic lockdown allowed no one to travel. So you might have felt very disrupted there. But nonetheless, I want you to think about this in Jupiter's blessings being a part of it. Jupiter in great dignity is opening up something here. And watched over even by good old Venus with Mars. And looking at this story, she can see what's happening in her kingdom. It kind of feels like you might have a change here of something to do with where you live, or what neighbors or neighborhood you live in, that feels is almost like you're moving to a foreign country. It doesn't have to be literal. It's just that Mars is in the house of far off foreign places. But if you use PayPal, Stripe, or do borderless income from international clients and global revenue, then that's your 12th house as well. And that means that you're going to increase in a prosperous and exciting way your online revenue or your borderless income as a result of this particular auspicious Jupiter co-presence. And so looking therefore from March 10th of this year, 9th, 10th of this coming, weekend through to July 15th for that flowing uptick of better financial resources in that manner. Lastly, if you have an addiction or self-undoing or some kind of pattern or habit that Mars wants to cut away, it's going to also bring you great blessings in travel opportunities, sibling relationships, neighbors and neighborhoods. It can even look like moving to a neighborhood where, say, everybody in the hood is like super health conscious, and it helps you get away from, the daily wine or something like that. Go back to, if you want, March of 2022 to August of 2022. That was the last square that Mars made from Aquarius, but without Jupiter's blessings, right? Without Jupiter's help in that third house. So you might found it to be travel opportunities that were really challenging, or electrically bad, erratic changes to do with people in the neighborhood or neighbors or siblings that were really disruptive for you between March of 22 to August of 22. If you're a writer, the writing house is the third house, and Jupiter Uranus gives you wealthy, prosperous, expansive new downloads, insights, and ideas and originality. So you can't complain there. And it could even indicate that some of these radical ideas could make you quite prosperous as well, especially if you're selling those prosperity ideas to foreign places and foreign countries, or writing projects or online things that you're up to. Okay, I think we're good to go. Let's see what happens, everybody. Let me know. And this is being recorded for my Patreon community. March the 4th, you'll get early access ad-free content if you join Patreon, and you would get this today. Instead, you're getting it whenever I have time to put it out, which is going to probably be Thursday or Friday this week. But stay tuned before the weekend. Probably I'll get it out Thursday. But you would have been watching this with no ads on March the 4th, which is a Monday. So if it appeals to you, check it out for $5 a month and get all the goodies and freebies and ethical bribes and leave after you got my 2 free courses. I don't care. I just say, give me a try, and then you can stay or you can go. All right. Ciao, ciao.